On this week's episode, is there a new 007 in our future? How the box office got bit by a shark? And what horror movie will scare audiences the most this fall? What horror movie will scare audiences the most this fall? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. We are back, everyone, and we're back strong again. It's the Pop Culture Cosmos Show. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly thank you for listening to all of our great programs, whether it's on radio 7 days a week or our awesome podcast, which you can download at any point in time and subscribe to at any point in time on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and over 30 different podcast outlets. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is... Gotta think of what good to say today. He is the evil mastermind of Humanica Media. You gotta check out everything that's going on with Humanica Media today at humanicamedia.com, Humanica Media on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and so much more. Is my good friend. It is the evil mastermind, like I said, planning another devious podcast today. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
Just so you guys know, in post, Gerald is going to add an overproduced maniacal laugh with some lightning in the background and possibly a soundtrack to like Castlevania or something. So just stay tuned for that. If he doesn't, yeah, just hold him accountable.
Because of copyright infringement, I'll just do the evil laugh, and I'll insert that right now. But anyways, it's going to be a great show for you. We've got planned. But it's going to be a great show we have planned for you today. We've got Jason Todd Feinberg from Honeyqueen. He's going to be talking about his thoughts on what to look forward to for horror fans coming up this fall, because we're heading into that right now with school going back in session and all that other good stuff that comes with it. The fall season is right around the corner. There's just a few horror movies left that are going to be on the plate for audiences, and he talks about which one he thinks might scare audiences the most this fall. I have a suggestion myself as well. Plus, he also delves into the Garbage Pail Kids as he remembers 30 years of greatness from the Garbage Pail Kids, which kind of caught me off guard, but was glad to talk a little bit about that as well. Plus, also as well, we've got Chris Daly from Fresh Media Works. He is going to be talking about his game, Friday Night Legends. It got backed on Kickstarter. It's actually selling extremely well, and he's going to give you the insight on why Friday Night Legends is a great gift for anyone who is a big fan of high school football. Plus, also, speaking of football, we've got our man in the know when it comes to fantasy football, Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Pater podcast, which is now part of the Pop Culture Cosmos. He will be on our show this week as well, talking about the best deals and the best individuals to get, and some of the most underrated ones as well when it comes to the wide receiver position, because I know fantasy football drafts are coming right around the corner if they're not here already. And if you're targeting a certain wide receiver, listen to his thoughts on who you might want to target in your upcoming fantasy football draft. It's a great show we've got for today. Before we get things started, my friend, what about the Meg, man? Of all the movies I thought would be a surprise hit this year, of all the movies I thought would be a surprise hit this year, the Meg was not the one I had in mind. I thought that was earmarked for being a dud on arrival.
Well, think about it. There's not a lot of good shark movies out. Actually, I don't even know the last time we had a shark movie.
Does that include Sharknado?
No, because Sharknado is its own beast. That's a sci-fi thing. People go into it expecting it to be ridiculous, and it is ridiculous, and that's why it makes money. And maybe those fans are also the ones who are watching Meg and Zombievers and movies like that. But yeah, we haven't had a good... Everyone was expecting Jurassic Park to be this amazing monster flick, and obviously it made money, but it wasn't the type of movie that you could just go and sit down and enjoy the ridiculousness of it. But Meg, from what I understand, it's a bad movie, but it's a very enjoyable bad movie. And we haven't had anything like that for a long time, at least not in theaters. We have stuff we can sit at home and watch, but think about it, you got Jason Statham, you got Dwight from The Office, you got
Now, if there anybody in that theater, if you've seen the trailer already, or anybody out there that has seen the trailer, Dwight from The Office. He's earmarked to get eaten by the shark. I don't even have to see the movie to know that. The guy that plays a jerk in the movie always gets eaten.
But that's what makes it so cool, is that it's so formulaic, and it's like a return to form for those classic 80s and 90s monster films. And I think that's the real appeal of this movie. And especially is because it's coming hot off the heels of Shark Week, because people are still in the mood to watch that kind of thing. And honestly, August, like, this is the perfect month for a movie like that, because there's not really anything else coming out. There was Mission Impossible, but between here and mid-September, there's not really anything to go watch. So if you want to beat the heat, go into a movie theater, cool down, and enjoy some snacks or whatever, and watch a movie, The Meg literally feels like the perfect flick to do that in.
Well, it seems like that's the case, because it garnered it garnered just about $45 million this weekend at the domestic box office, which was well above expectations. Many had earmarked it for around half that much, if not less. You also had another $100 million in overseas box office, and it's now generated close to $150 million worldwide. That's pretty much what it was around with the production budget. So it looks like in the end that it's going to take not only a big bite out of the box office, but it's going to make a tidy little profit as well. And you know what that means, my friend? Sequel time, doesn't it?
I don't see The Meg making a successful sequel, though. I see it happening like Deep Blue Sea 2 or Open Water 2 and stuff like that. It'll probably go straight to actually, I can't say that because I don't know how the movie's going to turn out, but usually movies involving the ocean, with the exception of Piranha 3 Double D, I guess that one got a movie theater sequel, but those types of movies don't really do well with sequels in the theaters. People like them, they were willing to indulge them the first time, but they never really get the shot to do it again.
I agree with you on that, because like you said, Deep Blue Sea 2 didn't fare well, Open Water 2, even to some extent after Jaws 2, Jaws 3D and whatnot, that seemed to be getting diminished returns with each and every turn, because obviously they couldn't match the suspense, the horror aspect, and just truly the scare tactics that Steven Spielberg came up with in the original Jaws film. So I have to agree with you on that. I see a sequel in its future already. This was co-financed by also, I believe, the China Film Company as well. So sharing the cost there. So I know it will play well overseas. I have a really strong feeling for that. And I think it will necessitate a sequel that I think will come to audiences in the theater at some point in time, let's say 2 years down the line. But you're right, whether or not it succeeds a second time around is yet to be seen. And there's not a great history and track level for that. So I'm not expecting big things out of it either, because I wasn't expecting big things out of it the first time. But, I guess I'm really wrong. I guess when you can be wrong, it's great that you're wrong when it comes to a nice popcorn flick like The Meg. There's also a lot of other great stuff to talk about in the news as well, is the heavy rumors. It's now beyond, I think, what a heavy rumor should be. It's almost like it feels like it's being confirmed, but obviously it hasn't yet, by Sony or Columbia Pictures or anything of that nature responsible for the 007 franchise. But cryptic tweets by Idris Elba himself are leaning towards the fact that there could be a new 007 in our future. This is something we've expected now for a little while, with Daniel Craig saying quite often that this would be the last. It was very hard to bring him back in the first place. I believe they had to back up the Brinks truck in order to get him to come back one more time. So it looks like that Idris Elba is not only the favorite to replace Daniel Craig as the latest 007, but it looks like I don't want to say it's money in the bag, because there's still probably I's that need to be dotted and T's that need to be crossed, but it looks like it's a pretty strong bet for Idris Elba to become the next 007. there are people all over the internet that say, yes, this is going to be great, and no, this is not going to be great. I'm a big fan of Idris Elba. Outside of the last Star Trek movie he was in, which he really wasn't given that great a material, I think he's done an outstanding job of what on virtually everything that he's done previously. He's an extremely skilled actor, and I am very excited for him in the role of James Bond, should he get that role. Let me hear your thoughts, my friend, because it looks like a very strong possibility, because he just seems to be stoking the fire as far as with his tweets saying that cryptically he may have the role in hand as far as for the next 007.
I guess my question would be, does it make sense? And don't get me wrong, I love Idris Elba and I love his character, but I would be more curious. I mean, I love the idea of him playing James Bond, but I'd be more curious to, what is this kid? What is this going to be? Are we still jumping on the legacy of the Daniel Craig Bond? Where is this? Or are they going to reboot it again into something new? Are we going to take more of the Pierce Brosnan approach to James Bond? Does it make sense? And I know people have been clamoring. Like the big deal is that, yeah, for the first time ever, they're talking about possibly having an African American Bond. But let's not forget, it was what, 3 or 4 months ago that they were talking about having the first female Bond. So does it make sense, or are they trying to? Are the James Bond movies losing their flair, so they're trying new tactics to get people into the movie theater? I don't care what skin color Bond has, what gender Bond is. I just want it to be a good story, because I've kind of gotten on board with these new Daniel Craig films because the story is more, I guess, enveloping than the other ones have been. Whereas with like, Pierce Brosnan and uh, Sean Connery and like the early Bonds, like they all have a certain level of Roger Moore. They all have a certain level of ridiculousness to them. And now I'm finally able to take James Bond seriously. So does it make sense? That would be my question. Where is it going to fit into the greater scope of the Bond mythology? And are they going to continue to make quality films, or are they just going to put things out there that they hope people want to see, kind of like a Hail Mary? Because I know James Bond movies are notorious for having a hard time getting off the ground.
You know what, my friend? I can actually agree with you very much on that. I have watched all the James Bond films. I understand that there is a level of ridiculousness when you're talking about the James Bond films pretty much before the Daniel Craig saga, the Daniel Craig era. And I know there was a lot of vitriol and anger when he first got the role, and they didn't realize who in the world this guy was, because he didn't really have a great track history of work beforehand. I know Pierce Brosnan, who I'm a big fan of, was never really given a great script to work with and never really given a great plot, and was over the top, including working with Halle Berry, who's a tremendous actress herself. I know Die Another Day, I believe it was, that they worked on together, was just really just way over the top. And he never really was given the kind of type of roles that I think that the kind of stories that I think he deserved. In fact, you could say the same thing for Sean Connery and Roger Moore as well, to an extent, because I think they're all fine actors and could have really brought more to the role of James Bond. But a lot of the reasons why it succeeded for so many years was that over the top ridiculousness and the wink to the, almost breaking the fourth wall when you're, especially in Roger Moore's case, when he would almost smile or wink to the camera when he's going through a certain, when he's doing something within the realms of 007. So I don't know. It's just tough to say, because like you said, it's gone in a completely different direction with Daniel Craig. And Idris Elba, should he get that role, I think he has the same type of mannerisms and same type of qualities that Daniel Craig. I think he leans more towards that realm, low-key actor, really just set in stone on a lot of that, not over the top, not winking at the camera, not fourth wall, not cheesy, not willing to come back at you always with a one-liner or anything like that, like in the past with maybe Roger Moore or Sean Connery, or even to an extent Pierce Brosnan as well, even Timothy Dalton for that matter. So I think Idris Elba will probably carry on the legacy if he were to be chosen as 007 that we're seeing now from Daniel Craig, because Skyfall was the first and only James Bond 007 flick to garner over $1 billion, and the last and the most recent Spectre 007 movie almost garnered, I think, garnered well over 800 million itself, despite tepid reviews. And for me, it really wasn't that great a film. So I think that the future does look good for 007. Tom Hiddleston would have been a great one. Tom Hardy, well, you know, he has that demeanor as well. He might have been okay at it, but I think Idris Elba, if he is chosen, will be a great choice. And once it gets confirmed, we'll obviously let you know here right at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But yes, I do think it does need to stay in a serious type format, especially to keep people like you buying into the James Bond series as we head into deeper into a new century, a new way of thinking, a new way of social consciousness, and the old ways of the womanizer, the old ways of misogynistic on occasion, just different ways that James Bond has been portrayed over the years. Those ideals may have to be pushed to the side, and they have been with Daniel Craig, in my opinion, and it's been more of a contemporary type of individual that we've been looking at with Daniel Craig, and I think Idris Elba, if he were to be chosen, would follow that pattern.
Right. But the character of Bond is still a provocateur, and that encompasses.
Yeah, he's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I just say it gets. I should say it gets closer to what our world is shaping up to. He still has a lot of things there. He still has some things from time to time that emulate the old world Bond that maybe they should try and steer away from in a new environment.
Yeah, but I mean, that also raises the question, can a character like James Bond exist in modern times, especially with the principles that he was founded on?
Well, I think he can, because you just have to go ahead and provide those continual tweaks to modernize the character. If you do it right, he won't seem stale. He won't seem like a fossil. He won't seem old-fashioned or from a bygone era, because you saw what happened with Skyfall. You put him in the right setting, you give him the right motivation, you put him in the right context with some great actors to work alongside with him, and you see it generated over $1 billion at the box office. Comparatively speaking, you've got the Mission Impossible series, which hasn't even come close to garnering that much, and that looks to be heading into another edition at some point in time, because that's been a success so far, generating almost 500 million itself. So I think when it comes to the Bond series, it is, I believe, one of Sony's biggest properties that they hold on to at the present time. I don't know if it's being, I don't know what the status is long term for it, if it's going to stay with Sony or head somewhere else, because I know at different points in time there's been talk of the Bond property leaving the Sony realm at some point in time, if it were to be outbid for a long-term planning by another bidder or another suitor, which definitely could happen. So I think at this point in time, the 007 series looks pretty good. I'm interested to see how they're going to close out this Daniel Craig chapter of it, but I'm enthused for the future, and I think James Bond can be modernized to a 2018 stature. I think they've taken good steps along that pattern. It just needs to continue. Otherwise, you're right, they will be left behind.
Yeah, and I want to see a continuing mythology. Despite the fact that I'd be like, oh, James Bond, his skin color changed, I would still like to see a continuation of, like I said earlier, what's already been built, because the storyline is solid. It just needs to, I guess it needs to go somewhere.
You're right. And as long as they still continue those foundations, I think they're okay. And they've got a great head start if Idris Elba were to take over, because right now the 007 properties have shown in the recent past to be very beneficial, very fruitful, and a entity that people want to see. And I think Idris Elba would make a good choice regardless of what ethnic background. And I just think he's a great actor. I think he can fill the role admirably, and I think he'll really do a good job if given the opportunity. What are your thoughts on the 007 that could possibly happen with Idris Elba, or the Meg hitting #1 at the box office? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Also, as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Coming up next, we've got a lot of great things left for you on the show. We've got, like I said, Chris Daly from Fresh Media Works, also Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Pater podcast. But first up, we've got our good friend Jason Todd Feinberg from Huntington. He's going to be sharing his thoughts on what he's looking forward to for the rest of the year when it comes to horror movies, and his thoughts on the Garbage Pail Kids. Something I didn't expect, but I was glad. But it reminisced and took me back to hear a little bit more about the Garbage Pail Kids. He'll talk about that and more coming up right after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. Coming up right after this, it's Chris Daly from Fresh Media Works talking about his game, Friday Night Legends, and why you may take an interest if you're a high school football fan. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Tyler Baker coming up next with his thoughts on the wide receiver position and who you should choose in your upcoming fantasy football draft. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back once again. I'll tell you what, and we're back once again. It's Gerald Glassford along with my good friend Josh Peterson. Josh, I know you wanted to talk some Game of the Year thoughts, because I know you and I are going to take it really seriously this year when it comes to the Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, Topicocalypse type deal when it comes to the Game of the Year. We're really talking about getting serious about some titles, looking them over, seeing if they're going to be the one that's going to be the #1 choice for us this year. I know I solicited some early thoughts from some great gamers out there, from our good friends at the Retro City Games. They've got a great Facebook group. Just go ahead and like it today. Be a part of it. Retro City Games on Facebook. They've got a great Facebook group, like I said, and they gave me some feedback on some games that might meet that fancy when it comes to some of the top games so far this year. So hear me out, Josh, and give me your thoughts on, well, let's say Octopath Traveler, Detroit Become Human, also as well Celeste. I know last week's game that just came out, what's the game that just came out last week? The one with the one that got the controversy.
Oh, it was
hold on.
What controversy?
Plagiarism.
Oh, Dead Cells.
Yeah, that's right. Dead Cells is something that a lot of people are giving high marks to as well, but a lot of people are also pointing to something that you played a great deal of, and that's God of War on the PlayStation 4. That seems to be garnering a lot of momentum, even for a game that was released earlier this year, and gaining a lot of momentum as far as that end of the year awards type stuff. So I know we're still in the fall type season heading towards to it. So I ask you, my friend, you wanted to hear some thoughts and some feedback, and we do appreciate our friends at Retro City Games for doing so. What are your thoughts on some of the Game of Year candidates that could be out there? Is there anything else that you feel that might be something that people should take a look at, and some games that you're just garnering now or gathering in to make sure that they would be considered for Game of the Year?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a couple of them already on the list a moment ago, but I would love to see God of War thrown up there, just because I honestly feel I never feel like a game deserves Game of the Year, but God of War, it really changed things. And I know we've had a lot of conversations about this, but it showed that you could take a game that people were fatigued or had franchise fatigue towards and turn it into something new, something emotional, something with a story that really will drive you from start to finish. And I think they did an excellent job with that. You know, Octopath Traveler, great game, shows that there's still life from in the JRPGs of yesteryear, and they did a good job of bringing appealing to nostalgia characters as well as offering something new to people who love those types of games. And I'm probably about 3 or 4 hours into it right now, and they just the story is really well written. I know a lot of people have problems with the dialogue, and I haven't had any like lost fear moments yet, but it's okay so far. My other pick for game of the year is kind of a weird one because I would say Far Cry 5. Just it was a fun game all around. Like there wasn't anything any time during this game that I was like, I don't want to play this anymore. It was the first game in a long time that I gladly played from start to finish without any complaints.
And that's something that interests me because of the fact that it's not garnering a whole lot of momentum as far as any game of the year thoughts. It didn't get much feedback, if at all, from our friends at Retro City Games. Reached out to other places. I didn't hear from that already. And I know other individual sites and other individual podcasts have also started talking about a lot of games that are out there. And Far Cry 5 wasn't mentioned really prominently among them. Why do you think that may be?
Just because I honestly like I don't think the game sold as well as they're hoping. I know it sold to a certain group of people, but I don't think as many people picked up this game as as much as someone who would pick up like Call of Duty, God of War, or something like that. I don't think it it appealed to that much of an audience because they didn't. If you think about it, man, like they showed it off at E3 last year, but it didn't really get the attention that it deserved. It's kind of like Ubisoft came out and said, "Hey, here's the game." They showed us a little clip of it, but they didn't really get into the nitty-gritty of it, into the story, into like the open world and the different characters that you would be helping throughout your journey. And even like the social aspects of this game, they didn't get into really any of it. And because of that, I you know, I will go out and say I think it had a marketing issue, but um yeah, it's just a shame because it's such a great game. It's interactive. There's always something to do. The characters are fun. The characters are engaging. The gameplay is fun. Being able to play with your buddies is amazing, and it's hours of gameplay that just it. I don't know. Maybe it went unnoticed. It went under the radar, but I think that it's a worthy contender. Maybe it's a question of people are wanting more people are trying to keep the single player experience alive, but maybe with a game like Far Cry, it's too close to the multiplayer games that people get so burnt out on, and that's why they're not playing them.
Should have been released when it did. Should have maybe been saved for maybe holiday this year, or very. I don't know. Should have made an extra effort to try and release it at the end of last year. Maybe it was released at probably the wrong time of the year for that type of perceived AAA game that it was.
No, I mean, because if you think about it, putting it out holiday season this year would be kind of a death wish because it's going up against a game that's almost kind of the same thing but better. In Red Dead Redemption 2, they released it in a window where there wasn't a lot of games coming out, and people had time to sit down and play it because it's a time consuming game. So it gave them just enough time to play it from start to finish, and it scored very well on aggregate sites. But I think that maybe it came out during a dry spell when people usually just want to get and dig into their back catalogs, and no one really bothered to go out and pick it up.
And that's a shame because it sounds like you really had a great experience on it. And I know there were others that could have said something as well, but unfortunately, like I said, got caught up at God of War 4, Octopath Traveler, and another game that got mentioned as well, Detroit Become Human. That game visually looks outstanding. I really like the way that it's being portrayed and the choices that you have to make and the dialogue that you have to make during the game. But I understand when it comes to the games that I believe it's David Cage likes to make, there always seems to be an issue when it comes to the actual gameplay itself, not living up to what the other end of his very, very big, very, very very, I guess, big thoughts. He had very, very just great thoughts on what he wanted to actually do and interact with as far as the world he creates. We know in his previous games as well. But it always seems to be maybe the gameplay is left behind. What are your thoughts on Detroit Become Human? I know you've had a chance to take a look at the game, and I know that with a lot of people, it seems to be very polarizing whether they really love it or they really just want to leave it alone.
It's one of those games where I love the thought of it. I love the idea behind it. I was a huge fan of Heavy Rain. It just it's such a daunting game though, and like I love the fact that nobody is going to get the same ending just because there's so many different ways that the game can play out, and it's all based on your decisions. But again, a game like that is so daunting. And if you think about it, you can't really go to the internet for help with a game like that because if you get stuck, you just got to make a decision. And a lot of people get to the point where, like, for me especially, like it's kind of like those read your own, pick your own adventure novels where you're like, okay, I'm going to make this choice, or I'm going to make this choice. I'm going to flip to the back of the book, or I'm going to go to the middle, or whatever. If I get to a point that I don't like what happened, I don't want to finish it because I'm afraid I know what almost have a feeling what the outcome is going to be, and I don't want to finish it. I know a lot of people I talked to who played the game had that same issue. What are your thoughts on it?
Like I said, the game is visually stunning. I think it's really something that takes graphics to a whole new level. That was until I saw the beautiful mountains in Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, that game looks absolutely gorgeous. For a Rockstar game, which has never really prided itself on top-notch graphics, in my opinion, that game is just going to is looking really sweet. But getting back to Detroit Become Human, visually it looks stunning. The character models are really outstanding. But I think when it comes to the actual physical gameplay itself, it really takes a back seat, unfortunately, to the visual novelization that we're trying to see. And you're right. When it comes to those choice games, if you don't like the choice you made, it's very hard to go back if you don't have a checkpoint system in place to say, hey, I wanted to go back and make this decision instead. Instead, you're just going down a road you committed to, and you would have to play the whole game again in order to get to that point. So I can understand your concern on that, but it looks like from all appearances that it is a really solid game. It could be considered one of David Cage's best, if not his best outing. And that includes, like you said, Heavy Rain, which was his really first big hit as someone that really got things started for the PlayStation. So I don't think it will be one of the finalists for the Game of the Year, but you never know. You never know.
I wonder if Detroit Become Human is going to suffer or is suffering due to the Quantic Dream lawsuit entanglements.
That could be an issue as well, because I know there was also some workplace environment issues that, like you said, are leading up to that, and it could take away from that. And anything that has that type of stain or smell to it has that type of stain or smell attached to it will obviously get some detraction when it comes to voting and or thoughts on the game itself. So that's a little bit disappointing to see that, and the unfortunate circumstances that happened off the game when it comes to the game development and the surrounding problems with that, and the lawsuits and the legal troubles that are mounting for that. But the game itself, I think, is very good, very visual, but doesn't have enough solid gameplay to back it up. And on that, I'm not sure. It depends on who you talk to. And right now, that's up in the air. But it could very well end up being one of the Game of the Year finalists as well. So it looks like a good crop so far. It's not the best year that I've seen so far shaping up by any stretch, but it's a pretty solid year, with Red Dead Redemption 2 coming right around the corner, which you and I will probably already say is got to be a Game of the Year contender. Is Fallout 76 and some other games that are coming out, are they going to be able to match up to what Rockstar has to offer, or any of the other games that we've seen already? Not sure, but we'll have to wait and see. But it definitely looks like a very solid year for Game of the Year contenders, but there's going to be some time left for other games to pop up and be on our radar. What are your thoughts on the Game of the Year that is coming up here right around the corner? Right around the corner. Let us know your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. If you don't do it now, no problem. Share us your thoughts, in the coming months. If you really play a game that you think is the best year so far. We'd love to hear from you. Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. I know, Josh, this weekend was QuakeCon. QuakeCon was something very big as far as if you're a Bethesda fan and you like everything that they have to offer, whether it's Fallout whether it's the Fallout series, Quake series, Prey, Wolfenstein, what have you. It is a big, big time for them because this is their big showcase for all their fans. What were some of the takeaways that you liked, that you saw out of it when it comes to QuakeCon? I know we mentioned briefly about Fallout 76 upcoming. I'm not as big on it because it looks like it's going to be in that Fallout realm, which is not graphically the greatest in the world, but it's taking that next step to almost like a Destiny type format with a multiplayer that's a multiplayer centric game. I could be moved wrong. I could be swayed in a different direction. I could end up actually really liking the game. But what are your thoughts on Fallout 76 and some of the other things that went on this year at QuakeCon?
I am interested in Fallout 76 and I'm not. It looks like a very ambitious game. It also looks like one of those games that where the possibilities for trolling are nearly infinite. Just the fact that you can go out and buy, or you can go look for pieces or remotes or whatever to the missile silos. So you spend all this time building your base, you and your buddies, and then it can just get blown up. Or you can have somebody else who's on the map also building a base just come over and start attacking you at any minute. So it 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 looks like it could be fun, and I don't know like what the dynamics would be of playing it by yourself, but it looks like the trolling possibilities are infinite. And I know they showed some footage of Doom Eternal, kind of dug into that a little bit. I we talked about Doom the other day. I don't I'm still not sold on it. It is a it's fun. It's fun to play. It's like a mindless game. It's fun to play, but there's not a lot of story. And I'm still, because Bethesda is known so much for story driven games, it's almost like I'm expecting more from it. I would like less like hordes of people coming at me and more of an in-depth story for whatever depth a story like Doom can reach.
You're right. And well, when it comes to Doom, I'm still way back when, like I said, my fondest thoughts of the Doom series still come from the 90s. Yes, I did play a little bit of the updated, rebooted Doom, and Doom Eternal coming. I probably will have my hands on that at some point in time. Is it something I'm really clamoring to? We'll have to wait and see. It did look good, what I saw that was played so far. I really liked what was shown off. But am I in love with it? No, it's not a gotta get game for me right now, but it is something that I am keeping on my radar because of the Doom history, because of the Doom factor, and I still just warms my heart even when somebody even just mentions the word Doom from all the great memories I have way back when. When it comes to Quake Champions, it was nice to see that they are actually finalizing the fact that it is going to forever now be a free-to-play game. I thought that was a great thing for the game and also the fans itself to just identify it as, hey, we're no longer going to be trying to think about charging it at one price. It's going to be a free-to-play game. We gave it a trial as a free-to-play game, and it seems to be going well. And from this point forward, we're going to be going ahead and keeping it as a free-to-play game. I know they showed off Prey and Wolfenstein in VR, and it still doesn't get me, man, as far as the VR is concerned. But when all is said and done, when it comes to when people are looking back on this VR segment portion of the video gaming scene, and they're going to look at that 3 to 5 years when VR was really something that people were trying to push out there, people will probably have to say that Bethesda tried to capitalize on it the most, because they have tried every which way to make sure that all their games are going to be on that type of format, and almost every other one as well, because Wolfenstein going on Switch, now you're getting Doom on Switch, and pretty much every other Bethesda game is going to be going on Switch as well, which is great for you as a Switch owner, my friend. I know you don't mind that at all.
Right. Yeah. No, the thing is, these Bethesda games are meant to be played on a big screen. So how they're going to translate to the Switch would be uh, interesting. I did buy Skyrim, and there are parts that it's fun. I love having this big console experience in the palm of my hands, but it's there's some parts like you really got to adjust the brightness for some games, like when you're dungeon crawling in Skyrim. It's really hard to see when there's like a reflection on the screen, so you got to up the brightness and do all that stuff. But I mean, it's still fun, and I would love to see them push more things. I would love to have Prey on the Nintendo Switch. Like that would be something I'd definitely be interested in playing. As far as VR goes, I do love their dedication to the platform. It's I haven't heard great things about VR. I know a lot of people like playing Skyrim, but my question would be like, once the novelty of the fact that it is a VR game wears off, is it frustrating? Because I know it's kind of goes back to the whole thing with motion gaming. Even like the Wii was not perfect. You would play sports games and you would try to swing. You had to be right where the sensor is. Sometimes it wouldn't pick up your hands, things like that. And with VR, the technology it relies on the visor and the hands, and that's how it tells what you're doing. So where do the glitches come in? At what point does it become frustrating? There's just a lot of questions there that I don't think the technology is good enough, especially to support a game like something that Bethesda has. I love that they're looking into it, and if anyone can crack the VR problem, it is Bethesda. But I just don't think the tech's there yet.
One thing that we didn't mention so far that I think is getting left out by a lot of people, and that is Rage 2. What are your thoughts on Rage 2? I know we got some more video of it this weekend at QuakeCon, and I'm not sure that it's still a hard sell for everybody out there because Rage in itself was something that was heavily pushed, heavily promoted, and didn't get quite the payoff as far as sales or the actual game structure itself. So now they're trying to push a Rage 2 on us with saying, hey, it's going to be better this time around. Do you think in your heart when you watch the video and watch the footage of Rage 2 that it is going to be something that it's going to be a lot better this time around?
Maybe. See, I wasn't exactly disappointed with Rage 1. The thing that bothered me about it was that they hyped it up like it was going to be the beginning of a new franchise, and then I invested all this time into it, and I didn't get to see what happened next, especially since it ended on a cliffhanger. But now, however, there are so many games out there like Rage 2 or like Rage that it's makes me wonder what are they going to offer me that I can't get elsewhere. I love the idea that the developers of Mad Max are working on this game, and if anyone can handle it, it's them. But it's going to be a busy season for gaming. So what are they going to offer me that's going to make me want to squeeze it into my schedule of games that I want to play? So far, I haven't seen anything that really impresses me that much. I want a story. Like I don't want to just go out into the wastelands and just shoot up mutants and crazy people and all that. If I wanted to do that, I would just play Borderlands again. So what's going to be in this game that's going to make me want to play it? What's the hook? And I just haven't been hooked yet.
And I think the most important thing that comes out of QuakeCon this past weekend is the fact that Bethesda is really behind the concept of crossplay. In fact, at the very end, they were quoted, a spokesman was quoted as saying that, well, let me put this, in talking about the games that are coming out for them, including Elder Scroll Legends, and I'm sure also as well Fallout 76 as well coming up. But I think it was focused more on the Elder Scroll Legends, which is coming to pretty much all the platforms that are out there. They stated that we cannot have a game. They stated that, quote, we cannot have a game that works one way across everywhere else except for on this one thing. We can't be talking about one version of Legends where you take your progress with you and another version where you stay within the ecosystem or it's walled off from everything else. That is counter to what the game has been about. End quote. So I'm telling you right now, they are very serious about pushing the issue when it comes to crossplay. The game in question, The Elder Scroll Legends, which is going to be something that you're going to be able to play across all the platforms, including your mobile, and take your progress over to any single platform that you have. So in the case, let's say myself, I have an Android phone plus an Xbox One and also a PS4, and I'm able to take it to all those. Same with you, my friend. You have from your phone to your Switch to your PS4 to your Xbox One to any of those platforms. That game is all about taking your progress from one platform to another, and it clearly seems like if PlayStation doesn't want to play ball, that they're not going to be able to get what they would like to out of it, because they're probably going to even get a copy of the Elder Scroll Legends if that's the case. That is an issue because that would leave a lot of PlayStation 4 owners out, and that could send a big signal that these large developers have had enough of PlayStation 4's reluctance for not utilizing crossplay. I understand what Rob McCallum and Douglas Hoibu have said in the past about the importance of crossplay, but I think it is becoming more and more important, and I think it has become a sticking point with developers at this point in time.
Oh, I totally agree. You make a game that goes on multiple platforms, and you want them to be able to interact, because people don't have money to go out and buy multiple consoles anymore, especially in this current market where people are downloading games instead of going out and buying them, and people are they'd rather sit at home instead of someone going out and buying a Nintendo Switch or an Xbox to play Fortnite with their friends. It makes sense that it seems like it's more profitable to have a game that spans across all consoles instead of just having the gate closed off and not letting people play. The same, Minecraft, Fortnite, Elder Scrolls, it makes sense, and it seems like it's a smart economic move, yet Sony is not playing ball, and it seems like if anything they're going to lose money from stuff like this. So why would they not just give in and let it happen? They want to monopolize their products, but I think in the end that's going to cost them money, especially if there's a trend that continues to happen. Who knows what's going to happen? Fallout 76, you have that's going to be a huge game. And if they want to do cross-platform and Sony locks them off again, there's going to be issues because people want consoles that they can play with their friends. So that's why I'm predicting that if this becomes a bigger issue, there's going to be more people moving away from Sony and into Microsoft and Nintendo territory, because
especially if the PlayStation 5 would come out and it not has that feature.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems stupid to me that Sony doesn't want to do it. This is important. This is what people have always wanted, and it seems like Sony wants to have such a tight hold on the market that they believe that locking off cross-platform play is going to sell more consoles or games or whatever, but it doesn't. And there are, as far as like people that I've talked to, I know more people with Xboxes than I do PlayStation. So it's a really weird thing. And the gamer community, is fickle and angry and whatever, but as mean as they are, they have all come together over this issue. And if that's happening, this is like the people of Middle Earth all uniting to fight Sauron. This is something like, if this is happening, then it's probably something that you should be paying attention to.
It's not 1988. It's not 1988. It's not 1998. It's not 2008. It is 2018. I understand Sony and PlayStation have constantly tried to make the excuse that there's platform issues, that there's technical issues. No, don't give me that. It's 2018, and if a system actually, let's be honest, as technically inferior as the Nintendo Switch is, comparatively speaking, to the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4, if that can do crossplay, if they get it, if a Nintendo, which has been backwards in their thinking about online, is in league with Xbox One and they're having a love fest and they can go ahead and do crossplay and all that, and PlayStation 4 doesn't want to play ball or step up to the plate, that to me is truly wrong. It's 2018. You can't deal with this anymore. You can't think of these old things in the past. You've got to have a system that's going to be able to be adaptable and have the crossplay to play with your friends, because it's just what people want to do now these days. There are more and more people that are clamoring for it there. And it just so happens that, yes, the PlayStation 4 is still the biggest boy on the block right now as far as sales are concerned. But with Nintendo and Xbox aligning themselves and making them available for crossplay, it just makes it that much more attractive. And with PlayStation 4, it could be an issue where yeah, your sales are pretty much done for now. And as far as this cycle is concerned, you're going to get maybe another 5, 10, maybe 15 million more. But you've got something coming up around the corner, which you've said is going to be even better than what you had before. And if you want to really sell it to a large audience and have the same goodwill that you did at the beginning of the PlayStation 4 cycle, then you better take the steps to do it, because crossplay is a reality whether you like it or not. And there's a lot of people that really are want to be able to go ahead with play with their friends on any console across any platform. And when it comes to the PlayStation 4 itself, it's just the fact that, hey, it's 2018, and there should be no excuse why you can't do it, because it just makes your system more attractive. And it's going to be people are going to choose your system based off of the games that you have that are exclusive to it. They're not going to play better whether or not it's a. I'm not going to really choose a Nintendo Switch or an Xbox One, because I can do either which one in crossplay, and not choose a PlayStation 4 if it has crossplay as well. I'm going to choose I'm going to choose the system that has the best games to my taste. And at this point in time, right now, PlayStation 4 has come out on top so far. And if they want to continue to stay on top, I think they have to go ahead and adapt crossplay to their system.
Yeah, I agree. It's time. Break down the walls. Bring the gamers together. If anything, the gamers are all about community. You know, they love you. They go out to these events, E3, Gamescom, PAX, whatever. Like they love to come together over issues, as divisive as they can be. And if this is what the gamers want, this is where the market's heading. It seems like it's only a smart decision to go out and pick and give the fans what they want. It's not like I honestly I don't see the negative side of it, besides because Sony, like, people buy PlayStation, people buy Xboxes. Like, I'm more geared towards buying the console that has the most exclusives. But we play a lot of games, so naturally I have all three. But like, I like the idea, like, my Halo or whatever I want to play on Xbox, or if there's a like an exclusive Square title, probably going to be on PlayStation. So it all depends on what you like to play, but it's nice to have the option of being able to play with your buddies.
It is. And if in the long term that PlayStation 4 wants to stay out on top and also have the PlayStation 5 be an integral part of everyone's future when it comes to buying a console, then crossplay is not a hope to happen, but it needs to happen, and it will happen if Sony smartens up to it. What are your thoughts on crossplay? Is it something that you need to have in your future when it comes to the PlayStation 4? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. And we're back to close out the show. This is Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald along with my good friend Josh Peterson. Do not forget that you can catch our shows on radio 7 days a week. Also, as well, you can subscribe to our podcast on any one of these great channels. Just type in Pop Culture Cosmos on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Anchor FM, or any one of the over 30 podcast networks we're on. You'll get all of our great programming, including the upcoming Fantasy Football Pater podcast, all the great extra episodes we throw there, and of course, our Monday and Friday episodes as well. I know you've got a great thing going on coming up with Humanica Media this week, so share us your thoughts on what's going on with Humanica Media.
Just Topicocalypse. Put out a new episode tonight. Check it out. It's video game to film adaptations that we'd love to see. We cast a God of War movie and or Netflix show, and Legend of Zelda. We cast Gears of War. Daniel talks about some Nintendo games because he's not really a gamer. It's good stuff, though. And also, you can catch us on the Podcast Radio Network. And I think that we're actually on at 4:30 Pacific time.
Really? Because it's been the past 4 p.m. Pacific time. But
yeah.
Well, check the listings by going to Facebook on the Podcast Radio Network, and you get the exact time on Tuesday each and every week it's on. And I'm still hurt that the fact I was not part of that Topicocalypse. Still hurt. I would love to talk about that.
It was thrown at me right as we were recording.
2 words for you. Mass Effect.
Yeah, I would actually love to see a Mass Effect movie made. But how cool would a God of War Netflix series be?
So it'd be actually third for me, behind Uncharted and Mass Effect. But they're talking about Halo first, so that's coming to Showtime, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But Legendary Pictures, I believe, still has the rights to Mass Effect, and believe me, I think that it would be a killer on screen if that was the case. But I digress. Yeah, I digress. That would be another episode in and of itself. My friend, we're here to close out the show on some potentially bad news. I know we talked about your thoughts in the past on the 007 series, but a couple things before we head on out. I know you wanted to talk about the Disney and Fox merger and a little bit about the properties that are being rumored there. But first on the list, my friend, rumors have it that the Chris's that were going to be in the upcoming Star Trek 4 that was going to be under production pretty soon. That was going to be in production pretty soon is kind of gone by the wayside because Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth, who were obviously in Chris Pine's case, a natural to be on there because he's portrayed Captain Kirk. But his father in the series, which was Chris Hemsworth, he would have somehow magically been brought back for this iteration Star Trek 4 as well. Their current status is, I don't want to say out for good, but they're certainly out right now because of the fact that, well, it all comes down to dollar-roonies, I think. I'm sure it's an issue over money. When they say it isn't over money, it's over money. And with the Star Trek series, which I've always said is a really entertaining series, especially the first two, I'm really hopeful that gets underway. It would be really something I would look forward to. But it has not generated over $500 million on any one of those movies that has been released. Even the brilliant Star Trek reboot that is so well thought of and so well loved and watched so much on broadcast television did not produce originally a great amount. And it looks like, from all intents and purposes at this point in time, that it has a ceiling and is yet to go above it, and which is a shame for any of the Star Trek films that have come out. My thoughts, I need to hear your thoughts, man, on the Chris's status currently in limbo on Star Trek 4, and the thought of, if they're not in it, where does Star Trek go from here?
I guess they're gonna have to figure that out, huh? Because people.
And this is not the Quentin Tarantino version. That would have been Star Trek 5 if that still, goes as planned.
Yeah, but I honestly don't know what they expected though, because both of these actors, their careers have taken off in superhero films. So obviously they're going to be expensive. And in Hollywood, if we've learned anything, it's that there's no loyalty to anybody. People just do what they do, and money literally drives everything. But it's stupid of them not to give them what they want, because the chances are pretty high with that kind of, I know it is it is a chance that they're taking, but the odds are good that they would make their money back. It'd be a question of how much money are they going to make off of the film. But
well, yeah, they've never been able to generate a huge profit from the films in the theater. They get it back in home theater and they get it back in home video and television and broadcast and syndication. That's where they seem to make the money on these films.
Right, but if there's ever a time to drop big money on a film like this, it's right now, because we're having a Star Trek renaissance on CBS's streaming service. So there is hype coming back to this series, and it seems like a stupid idea to cut the character that people were hoping to see. And like, for me, like, what's his name? Chris Pine he's the big drawing factor to the Star Wars films for me, because I think he plays Captain Kirk very well, and I like I like the character, and I like his interactions with Carl Urban's character, and I would love to see more of that. But if they take that out, then it's throwing me into a mythology that I don't really know anything about. Whereas, the Chris Pine we got to see from the beginning, we're attached. People are attached, and they're trying to bring new fans into the series, and it's not going to happen, because Chris Pine was what sold the show, as much as I like the other actors.
And now would be a great time for it to come out, as far as in this time period before a Star Wars 9 comes out, because as you and I both know, there's a lot of backlash against the Star Wars series right now. And the goodwill as far as the Star Wars series has never been, I don't want to say has never been lower. I want to correct myself. the Star Wars series hasn't been this low since the tepid response from the prequels, I guess, probably the best way to say it. Wouldn't you say? I mean, the people were really garnered and really high on the Star Wars series when it was rebooted, when Episode 7 was nearing it coming out, obviously garnering $2 billion there. But since then, a lot of ill will has headed its way. And this would be a great time to bring the Star Trek series out in this time frame so that you can actually make it, hey, come over to our side, come to the Star Trek side if you really are tired of what Star Wars is all about.
Yeah, it just seems like if there was any time where they were going to take a financial risk, it would be now because, like I said, Star Trek is experiencing a renaissance. And if the hype on the internet of Captain Picard coming back is any indication, people do still enjoy this series and these films, and it just seems like a stupid idea to not, because it's not like they can't afford it. It's just it's a matter of maybe it's because the last Star Trek didn't do so well, but it's just it's a matter of of finances. But it's just, if there are so it makes me wonder, because if they are so confident in the movie that they're okay not having their star in it, and the and Chris Hemsworth as well, uh where is the movie going to go? Because it seems like without him they need to rewrite it, unless they just recast him, in which case I don't think that that's going to be such a great idea.
No, I don't think so either. And in the case of getting those two actors into back into the fold and get them what they need, because, well, this all I'll just leave it like this, as Picard would say to Paramount Pictures and to any one of those involved with the Star Trek 4 that have the ability to get both Chris's, Hemsworth and Pine, back into the fold when it comes to Star Trek 4. You need to make it so. On the way out, my friend, we've got to talk about Disney and Fox properties. I know you had some issues last week when it came to the rumors that Disney is going to ditch all the Fox properties and just leave them in the gallows, so to speak, on a lot of the major properties that we had talked about in the past: Die Hard, Alien, Predator, etc., and just focus on some of the ones like The Simpsons that are maybe a little bit more family friendly. I don't think they will. I think there's some money there that's too good to pass up. I don't think that they have to do it under the Disney banner. They have other film companies that they can do it under. So what are your thoughts, real thoughts on this possibility that Disney could shelve a lot of these properties like Alien and things of that nature that have generated a lot of money in the past and could generate more in the future given the right circumstances?
It feels like a waste to me. I didn't have any a large amount of love for the last Alien film, but I love the franchise. They're movies that I grew up with. Same thing with Predator, same thing with Die Hard. It seems, and the biggest takeaway I got from that was that Bob Iger had said that they wanted to continue making movies, Kingsman and things like that. But what does that mean for Kingsman? Does that mean they're going to dumb it down to a PG-13 rating? In which case, I it's going to lose a lot of its flair, because what makes that movie so good is its over the top violence. So yeah, I would love to see more Alien films made, and it seems like a bad financial move, because it makes me wonder, did Disney only buy Fox just because they wanted these Marvel properties, and properties like Avatar and things they could easily squeeze into a Disney, the Disney realm, because Fox is so much more than that. So I wonder if they even thought about these franchises they would be gaining, what would happen to them. And even if they wanted to sell them off, I don't see any smaller companies picking them up, because chances are Disney's going to want a fat paycheck for a lot of this stuff. And it also makes me wonder what's going to happen to the DVDs, the Blu-rays. Like, are we still going to be able to buy things? What's going on with the game rights? Because Alien does have some gaming things, but with Predator coming out, it just makes me wonder what's the point of going to see it, because if it ends on a cliff note, or a cliffhanger, why am I going to go see it if Disney's just going to lock it in the vault or whatever? I It seems like a stupid decision financially, to just because they have an image to uphold, throw it down to Lionsgate or something, because I know they own a lot of those smaller studios. But yeah, it seems, I don't know, it kind of irks me that they would do something like that.
in the case of the Kingsman, that would be a really shallow maneuver. That would not be the brightest move in the book, because I just did the numbers while you were talking, and from both those movies, both Kingsman, The Secret Service, and also Kingsman, The Golden Circle, the production budgets on those combined have been around the $200 mark combined, and it's generated over $800 million worldwide. When we talked about Star Trek not generating that much of a profit, we're talking about something that is a $150, $200 million budget on those type of movies. So you can see the issue there when it comes to if they don't make if they only generate $350, $400 million there. But when it comes to something that has generated $600 million estimated over what the estimated budget is of these two pictures, the Kingsman series would be something I want to at least continue, at least, and give it another shot before I'd call it a day on that. So I understand that they're going to allow whatever's in production to continue to flow out there under the Fox banner. But for the long term, there are some great properties. I think a Die Hard reboot is in order. I also think that the Predator and Alien series are some things that they shouldn't just totally discard. I understand if the Predator movie does not hit this year, I can understand them shelving it for at least 3, 4, 5 years possibly, and then trying to reboot it then. I still think it would be a good idea to do so at that point in time. The same thing with Alien, give it a couple of years off and try to refresh it strong. But there are some properties at Fox outside of what, like you said, was really in the near and dear heart, and as far as the Avatar and Marvel stuff that they wanted to get a hold of, that they should pay attention to and they should not neglect, because there's some good stuff there that they could make a tidy profit from. So and as fans, we would like to see it as well, because I'm all for another Kingsman outing. I think at least on one more time should be great. I'd love to even see the team that was in Kingsman, The Golden Circle, when it comes to what's the when it comes to The Statesman, which is the American counterpart, the American version of the Kingsman, I would love to see even maybe an offshoot film with them as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. I wasn't a huge fan of the Golden Circle, but I do love that franchise, and it would be a shame to see that dumbed down to a PG-13 rating just because what Disney doesn't want to be seen as someone that puts out violent movies. But that's just, it seems like such a waste, because a lot of these movies have found their identity in that type of thing. So it also makes you wonder what's going to happen to Deadpool. I know they have plans and they're saying Deadpool will be fine or whatever, but what I'm noticing is, because I just read Blood, Sweat, and Pixels by Jason Schreier, and he talks about what happened to Star Wars 1313. And basically, Disney kind of went behind a lot of people's backs, and they deceived the developers at LucasArts into thinking that they're going to be able to finish the game, just keep doing what they were doing. And then just out of nowhere, they said, "All right, all of you are gone, are laid off." So they all lost their jobs. And a lot of the language that I read, they had in the press releases in that book from Fox are the same type of language that we're seeing now in these press releases of Disney talking about the Fox merger. So it makes me scared, man. It makes me scared about what's going to happen to these films that we know and love. Obviously, a lot of people at Fox are going to be losing their jobs. Is Disney going to be dismantling Fox and just absorbing these movies? Or are they going to let Fox run as they do? If that's the case, then I don't see why they couldn't continue with Alien, Predator, whatever. There's just so much about this that we don't know, and I know a lot of people aren't too thrilled about it, but this kind of locks up a lot of franchises that people wanted to see grow into something more.
And it does put their status going forward in hiatus and in question, excuse me, and that is really concerning for a lot of people who do have an affinity for the Kingsmen, for the Kingsmen, for Die Hard, for Predator, for Alien, and any of the other great franchises which are now pretty much in question because of the acquisition by Disney. What are your thoughts on Star Trek 4, and also as well, what are your thoughts on Disney what are your thoughts on Disney when it comes to the acquisition of Fox? And are you concerned that these Fox properties that we all know and love, like Aliens, Predator, Kingsman, Die Hard, them having a possible non-future, is that of concern to you? Do you really want to see more films out of any of those properties and all the other ones that are not Marvel centric or Avatar centric from Fox? Tell us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also, as well, the status of Star Trek 4 is now in peril. Do you want to see both Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pine be a part going forward for Star Trek 4? And are you excited to see that film if it should come to pass? Share us your thoughts again. Pop Culture Cosmos on Pop Culture Cosmos on Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. So, my friend, it's been a great week. A lot to talk about indeed. We want to thank again Chris Daly, Jason Todd Feinberg, and Tyler Baker for being on the show. Any last thoughts, my friend? Because it's going to be another great week right here in pop culture.
I think I'm good, man. I'll probably have some more exciting stuff to talk about on the Friday show.
Oh, wow. I'm intrigued because he doesn't tell me any of this ahead of time. So I find it out all on my own as well. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.